With a career in creative production, music production, project management, television, branded production, and more, Jim Olen joins me today to discuss how the explosion of platforms and channels has impacted business to business marketing. Currently, Jim is the Vice President of Video Production and Creative Director at Industrial Studios, a media agency focused on creating industrial branded entertainment where the mantra is stop making terrible videos. Amen to that. Jim, thanks for being with us.
Sure, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I thought we'd start by just telling us a little bit about Industrial Studios, the approach to storytelling, and the sweet spot of the company.
Sure. Well, I've had the opportunity to do a wide range of video production. When I knew you back in Chicago, I was doing commercials. I've had the opportunity to work in an experiential marketing firm. I did live events. Obviously all kinds of production, but mostly centered around B2B. And then when I got a call to launch Industrial Studios, and I think for a large part, and this is kind of an overgeneralization, but the manufacturing industry, there wasn't a big focus on marketing or creative marketing and like creative ideas and ideation. People were doing video, of course, but they would reach out to video production companies and shoot this spindle on this CNC machine and shoot this, but there wasn't creative ideation. And so I had the opportunity to kind of mix my backgrounds of, experiential, a little bit of live events and a lot of video production and branded entertainment, which I define as programming with an agenda. Into manufacturing and just focus on it. And originally I thought, well, like how fun and how weird and how crazy could that be, making videos just for the manufacturing industry? But it turns out these are really inventive people looking for inventive solutions and to break through the noise a little bit. And so we launched Industrial Studios about 2 years ago with a live event at a trade show. And usually trade shows are old and boring, but we got a little like 30 by 10 footprint and created what we called the Creators Lounge. And it was like an Ellen DeGeneres set in the middle of a manufacturing trade show. And it just kind of was different. So Industrial Studios focuses on bringing the different or being different.
Well, that's great. And in the industrial space, it sounds like you sometimes have to dig out interesting stories with clients who might not either see their attributes or their best stories. So do you find that you're working with them to it almost helps the sales process? You're going to uncover things that are really actually interesting that are there that they just don't even see.
Yeah. So many times we're talking to tool makers or manufacturers. We produce 3 or 4 different shows on YouTube for a client. And we're talking to manufacturers who are selling end mills, drill bits that go into CNC machines. And they're used to just sell these end mills. But I kind of approach it, let's talk about how those got made and the people and the passion. And people just love manufacturing and they have a great passion. And I often ask questions like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Why do you want to be an engineer? Why do you want to build this or work on the CNC machine or the programming? Let's tell that story, not the story of the piece of metal itself, but what went into that piece of metal and the passion to create that. And they just open up. I was talking about the Creators Lounge earlier. The objective in 2022 was reveal the personalities that are in manufacturing. This year in 2024, we're going to do something a little more substantial and substantive conversations about workforce issues and all that kind of thing. But those conversations that you would normally see in broadcast television, you wouldn't see here. I'm kind of help transferring that over.
Those are strategies that, you and I have worked with in traditional legacy brand advertising.
I mean, it's a little less of typical or traditional advertising. Typical is a bad word, but traditional broadcast advertising, and more like television and broadcast shows. Um, I was using words like episodic and episodic content, episode in this show and that show. And I was told once, well, you don't need to say episode all the time. This isn't television. And I'm like, no, we have to train and educate the manufacturing industry. And before you knew it, my client like, well, let's do a pilot on this. They would come to me and say, we need to do something about the workforce issue and the lack of skilled labor in manufacturing. Can you come up with an idea? And it was just like any other development, production company. You develop an idea. All right, well, I'm going to develop an idea called Help Wanted. And it's not about the jobs that are available. It's like about how people love their jobs. So let's tell that story. And if an engineer can tell a story of like why he gets out of the bed and figures things out and solutions, it'll inspire other people to get into manufacturing and help it. So it's very much like a television production company.
Do clicks matter to your clients, or are you like, I've talked to some people where, hey, we've got to build an audience of, a community of 500, 600, 800,000 to be relevant. You're telling these stories. What's your focus? Are you worried about the clicks or that return that you might get on these platforms?
Well, yeah, because audience is the number one. I have to write to the audience. I have to appeal to that audience. What is the audience looking for? When you do branded entertainment, I often talk. There's three core points in branded entertainment. You need a good idea. The content has to be good. The concept has to be good. You need a good sponsor. And you also need good distribution. So you can't have just a good sponsor and a good idea without good distribution. And you have good distribution and great sponsor, but if you have a terrible idea, it's not going to go anywhere. So you need those three components. But one of our clients that we're producing all these shows for, they started out at 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, and within 2 years they were at 34,000. And so we're growing their audience. And you asked about clicks. That's kind of what they're looking for in that engagement. Although we're ideating for those clicks and we want good engagement, I want to focus on producing really good content that people like and watch and go, well, this is kind of fun. Shooting it differently than you would normally shoot it. Why shoot something like this when you can shoot it like this? And people see those subtle little differences. I put a GoPro camera in the middle of a camshaft a couple weeks ago in Cincinnati, and it had the host just look through the hole of the camshaft, and it just brings an energy to it and a fresh perspective to it that I'm hoping other people aren't doing. So, and it'll get the clicks and it'll get the engagement. But you're talking about manufacturing specifically. I don't see there's a lot of opportunity to market for these manufacturers. You see a couple of big manufacturers on broadcast television, broadcast radio a little bit, and then you certainly see them in trade shows. But in between that and this, where can they get their message out?
So it's about building a little bit of a community, though. In a sense, it's like if their community is, you're using these platforms and channels, it may not have the scale, but if I'm out searching camshafts and I need 500,000 for my business, it would really be good if that video with a GoPro got served up, because that guy, that potential client, sees something different in that connection. And I think that's storytelling. That's the beauty of storytelling. So have you seen and I know it sounds like you haven't been at this a long time with industrial, but have you seen changes in the way brands are communicating to consumers or customers? Are you're using these channels to talk differently?
Yeah.
Are you seeing other clients do this? That maybe you're starting some other clients to think differently.
Yeah. Well, I'm also seeing a lot more trust, a lot more. Well, they're doing something right. They're telling this story right. Um, I work with huge $1 million, $1 billion companies, and they go like, whatever you think is working. So, um,
That's the
and
best
so
client to have, isn't it?
yeah, I get into their lobby and I take them through, and as a director, and I'm thinking about starting the series here, and I'm thinking about showcasing this, and then I'm thinking about doing this, and they're kind of deer in the headlights. Um, and they're like, what? They have the trust that's just like, this isn't what we specialize in. We specialize in making parts. You specialize in bringing and engaging an audience. So you go get them.
That's
So
great. And listen, when you're in a room where trust is there and the red tape is reduced to just like you talking across the table, it really makes for a great
yeah, it's very
relationship.
collaborative, and
Yeah,
we're very fortunate to have some great clients who trust us. So like, I have an idea. Why don't we do this? Or I have an idea. I was doing something for 3M the other day, and they have these anti-fog safety glasses. And I hired a host, and we're kind of doing these stand-ups. So client provided content that's, it's not all that exciting. So the task for me is, how do we make it more exciting? So let's hire an actress to do a stand-up and introduce the product at the heads and tails. And it was an anti-fog. And I was like, well, what do you think we bring a fog machine in and you like interact with the client provided content? So the user generated content. And they're like, no, cool, sounds good to me. So like, they're, I think it's a fresh perspective that is very welcome.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, you guys are ideation. I assume you have probably a lean and mean team there. We're coming out of listen, we're post pandemic, we're way past the pandemic, but we're still fighting challenges with getting people to work, coming in and out of the office. What are some of the challenges you see? Listen, you're a creative director, you're a mentor, you're a director. What are some of the challenges you see acquiring teams currently?
Well, the freelance model is working, um, but it's hard to hire freelancers until you have the gig. So, if speaking of that help wanted idea, there's the biggest challenge is the pitch and coming up and the work that gets you that gig. It'll take days for me to develop help wanted and put it in a pitch deck and put like sponsors, and this is what sponsors might get out of it, and that we have to breathe life into these, and because we're kind of educating our manufacturing partners as well. And like, what would who would get what, how would they get, so there's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's difficult sometimes when you can't hire a freelancer if you're working under a freelance model, because that's non-billable time until somebody says, yes, I buy into that pilot. So the pitch decks are challenging. So it's hard to hire a copywriter to do pitch decks, an art director to do the decks to make them look really cool. But that's what sells it. It's get that title on there and explain what it is. I wrote an idea not too long ago called "My Best Friend is a Tool," and it's a comedic approach to selling tools. And this guy and this woman, like I envisioned two hosts selling it. And they're talking about this tool is great. I do this, but you think they're talking about an individual when they're really just talking about a tool. And it sounds great, and you just laughed, but that idea has to get out of the head and onto a whiteboard and onto a pitch deck, and that's the big challenge. Is once they say, all right, let's produce this, and here you got, X for a pilot. That's kind of the easy part, because now you can hire the EP and the crew and everything. So
Sure.
that's one of the challenges.
Are you guys dipping your toes in the water with AI at all in production or in post or writing, creative development?
I don't use AI a lot for script writing, or at all really for script writing, but I am using it now for this program I'm doing in 2024. It's all about the future. It's all about technology. It's all about digital manufacturing. And so the style guide visually is very vector illustration and digital interference and that kind of look and feel. And AI is certainly a part of that. And so I wrote a bunch of scripts, and normally I would do a scratch voiceover and then hire a voiceover. Well, now I just, for this project, we get the script and have an AI voice do it, and then manipulate that voice. In Photoshop, we're using AI quite a bit. I'm doing something that is kind of like a manufacturing art gallery, and so for Photoshop to put together this design of, industrial meets people meets this, and, and it kicked out some really cool stuff. We didn't have a huge budget recently to do a photo video shoot. I had cast 6 people for this activation in Chicago. And normally you would send all 6 to one studio location and do a photo shoot to get all the assets for the promotion, for the media, for the bumpers, for the open. But we didn't have that budget. And so we used Riverside to record some blocking and some general blocking and even some headshots. Now, the quality wasn't good at all, but what we were intending to use is make them look AI anyway. So take a less than ideal photo and turn it into an AI looking, image. And so we still had that campaign look and feel, because we sent production kits and green screen kits around the country. And so we used AI to kind of take a headshot and make it really cool. One of the comments like, wow, they look like a superhero. And that was kind of the AI avatar generated thing that, or inspired look that we went for. So not a lot, but some, probably more than others and less than some.
I think, listen, I spent a lot of time at NBC where I had the same problems that you face, which is a client who is eager to move forward with a project, doesn't have the money. You want to give them every bit of creative firepower that you've got in your toolbox. If AI can give you something that can be a differentiator and keep you and that client in the game, then I think you use it. I think, and you learn it. It's a tool. You just don't buy a computer and suddenly know how to write. You have to understand how to format and understand how to put a sentence together. I think, you guys are smart. Maybe you write or create to it. I think that's very interesting, and eager to see where that project goes. So
I think
we'll check back.
Copywriting is one thing. It like good copywriting versus content writing, where processes or educational content, or like I think I can embrace AI much more in that way. But in video production with copywriting and like a 30-second open for an activation, it's more copywriting than it's content writing, and so I'm not going to turn to AI for that.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I don't think we're at a point. I don't know when. I had a discussion with a podcast that I did a few days ago, and we were both saying it's not there yet. My guest was convinced it's coming. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel there's like last mile problems. There's a lot that you just can't expect the AI to get the nuances of. That human touch is still really important, and a client needs that.
And that's why they hire us.
So Jim, look at looking forward with all these new tools that are coming, AI. What any advice for some of your new team members or students who are out there coming up and learning the craft of content creation?
Well, I always tell folks to be a sponge for everything. Um, be a sponge for video and camera work. Be a sponge for if you want to produce, if you're just getting into it, for QuickBooks, for After Effects. Watch a commercial or watch B2B, and what do you like about that? What do you not like about that? What do you like about the YouTube? Like, could they have done a different title to get better SEO? So there's so many different aspects that they can be a student of the entire game. I mean, you asked earlier about engagement and clicks and everything. And when I write scripts, like, of course, I'm thinking about a YouTube audience and what would make a great, hit better marks and engagement and SEO. And it's got to be clear and concise, and it's got to be searchable, and so on and so forth. So that's what would be my advice to young people who are getting in: is be a sponge for everything, and experiment, especially in our industry. People aren't turning to folks like you and me to do what's already been done. They expect us to think differently, to be differently. We're there, I had a client once from DuPont tell me it must be nice to have a job where you get to dream for others. And I thought that was a great summary of our role. We have to, because it's not like they don't know how to dream, but they just don't have the capacity or the inclination to go where our brains are going, whether it's copywriting or art direction or videography or whatever. So I encourage the young folks to embrace that side, dream with your eyes wide open, and think differently, because that's what they're coming to us for. If they were coming to us for AI that somebody else could, like, you don't need to do it. So that's why I like to refer to Industrial Studios as a branded entertainment firm instead of a video production shop, because branded, you need to bring the idea. That video production, I mean, there's all different kinds of video production companies out there, but a lot of people think video production is just pick up a camera and shoot what's on the storyboards. And I think there's much more value in creating the storyboards, writing the idea, than just capturing the idea.
Yeah, and I think that because of these channels, and the reason I'm talking to different people like you, I'm so I am very interested in, we're still marketing, we're still telling stories, but it's like the 30-second world. We're going to move on for that. Imagine having 4 minutes or 3 minutes. Now you gotta think differently, because you gotta keep people there and engaged. So creatively, you gotta tell your story differently. But then we're also asking our creators to understand, like, how to promote that so it gets picked up by SEO, and how it plays on certain channels versus other channels. And I just think it's really cool. I think it's an amazing time. It's never been a better time to be in production, because there's so many channels and outlets. There really are an amazing amount of places where our stories can be told. And I really appreciate you for sharing some of your expertise today.
Sure.
We're going to put all of your links right here on this post, so people can come and see some of the great work, like Help Wanted and My Friend's a Tool. And
well, that one's still that's on the whiteboard over there. My Friend is a Tool.
Well, we can't wait. We cannot wait to see My Friend's a Tool, because I'm sure it'll be great, like all the other projects you've done.
I appreciate it.
Listen, I want to thank you for being with me today, Jim, and we will be always curious to see what's coming out of Industrial Studios. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
Well, to find out more about Industrial Studios, Jim Olen, and everything we discussed, check out the links below.